I was the teacher, and we actually had other adults were always invited to be there as well. It worked out well. We found that usually the students are quite willing to go with the flow and to change and adapt, and it's maybe the teachers who are a little bit more cautious.
Agree? You're shaking your head.
Yeah, I think mostly the kids found the process quite easy. There were a few things like the documentation stuff and the artifacts the kids were a little bit less interested in. But they actually liked the structure a lot. They liked working in groups, they liked pulling work when they were ready. They liked having a set amount of time or a set amount of work to do. We kind of did it more by work than by time, but they liked having a unit that they could get their mind around instead of like a big curriculum.
Nice.
That for them, making it tangible, I think the kids really appreciated. And then the fact that they could work at different paces and it wasn't stressful, I think they kind of got into that too.
Nice.
Maybe some abused it a little, but
And I liked it too, because I could then work with the students who were struggling when they were struggling, as opposed to trying to cover the whole class at once. And we had some criteria for how it needed to look when each chapter was finished, and I could go through it with them as a group, as a small group, and send them back to continue working if it wasn't done. I think they were more into it than they let me know. You think so? The following year when they came back to school, a lot of them asked how the class was going, and then when I said we weren't doing that class, we were like, oh, why aren't you doing that class, right? You should be doing that class. But it was a one-off experiment, so we didn't do it again. The research center that we're working, and the way we wanted to build the middle school was heavily based on self-regulation. So we want kids to be able to adopt and do the learning themselves, and to get to the point where they can actually choose what they want to learn, at least within the framework that we set. We're very interested in, as is most of education is talking about right now, the growth mindset. We want to have them think that they can get smarter, not have them think that they have arrived with some sort of smarts and that's it. And so we're trying to not sort them. We're trying not to give them the impression that they can't learn more. And we changed our grading system to reflect that. Then we also want, what did I just say? Self-regulated and growth. We want them to become what every school will say. We want them to be lifelong learners, but we want them to have tools so that they're lifelong learners. At the conference here, it's come up a lot that students come through the system, get into business, and then people who I've been talking to here say, then we have to tell them not to continue working like they've learned to work. But now you're going to work in groups and be collaborative and make sure your neighbor improves with you and so on. Sometimes in education we teach them to compete with their neighbor, get a better grade if it's on a curve, maybe not help them and so on. So we're trying to get past that. And collaboration is absolutely key for us.
But it's more than just the kids collaborating. It's also the mindset that the teachers are collaborators with the kids. So we took the idea of collaboration beyond just group work. But this is a collaborative venture for everyone. The kids need to collaborate with each other. The teachers and the kids need to collaborate to accomplish the learning. And ideally, Paul collaborates with them too.
And so if those are the things that we're trying to do, we want to help with a structure and with a mindset, with a general atmosphere that everything's a little bit flatter, that we're all working on projects together, and we get that by?
Well, so it just turned out that the very first thing when kids are working at different paces is you need some kind of transparency to even manage it all, just the kids and the teachers together. So basically, many of them have Kanban boards or something very similar so that they can actually see where people are and what they're working on, and it helps also with those groups of, or the contained amount of project or knowledge that the kid has to take on at once, so it all feels workable. So that was almost like easy to sell, because once kids are doing different things, you have to manage it somehow, and you have to be present when you walk up to the kid, because you can't like not know what you're going to do with the kid. So it became really important, this transparency. And if kids are working at different paces, you can't present a year-long syllabus, the big plan, because it's not going to work if everybody's at a different pace anyway. So that one almost just fell into people's lap. Like, because of our structure, there was almost no other alternative. And then it turns out that if you expect a growth mindset and you're giving the grade of excellent to the point where you could teach others, you've mastered it, or not yet. Not yet means you got to keep continuing, which basically means that unit you took on before needs some refinement. So that means rework, which means you're basically looping back through the iteration. And that sort of almost without any effort leads to the idea that a kid has to look at their work, can talk with the teacher, reflect on what to do different, what to change, and try again. So,
and these are all terms in education. So it's standards-based grading, right? The not yet grade. It's looping, sometimes it's called. It's formative feedback. But it really helps to approach all of these ideas from someone else's framework, right? So when Bill shared with me, like, why don't you try it from this point of view, right? It gives us a new vocabulary, a new way to look at it. Different things come out when we talk about it. We're aiming for more of the school. We started with the 7th and 8th grade, which is they're combined in classes. We only have 18 students in that group. We have 5 principal teachers and then maybe 4 or 5 other teachers who work with them at some point during the day. So our longer term plan is that we go from our relatively small shifts towards an agile mindset that we have right now into bigger shifts with that group over time. And when we're ready, we talked a lot about it. And I think we were thinking about this from the teacher perspective. That might change as we're finding out. But when we're ready, then, if it's working, then we'll release that same model up into the next grades, the 9th and 10th grades. I think what's going to happen, actually, is that if we're doing it, and if we're doing it well, the students themselves, the 8th graders, will go into 9th grade. And if we've done it really well enough, they'll say to their teachers, well, can't we really do this other way instead? We have this other technique we use, right? And we can organize it ourselves, right? And if we get that, it'll be a little uncomfortable pressure for teachers, but it'll make the change happen quite quick, because the practitioners themselves are the ones who are asking for the change.
However, there are already 9th and 10th grade teachers, maybe not a lot, but there's a sampling that are curious and interested in what we're doing and already running their own experiments in their own classes of integrating different topics, working in groups with the kids, having them collaborate, and sort of not providing an actual grade, but since they're doing projects and it's basically robotics associated with the science of biology, do the plants live or die, basically? Which is its own sort of feedback.
Right.
It's also really rewarding when I go through the 9th and 10th grade building and someone stops me and says, hey, come and look at this. And in one case, there was a big Kanban board on a shower curtain that they had designed. Right?
Oh my gosh,
So like, oh, you're doing this. Yeah, it's hard to think that far down the road. We want to really get it right with this first small group of students, and we expect this. The middle school students are 18 this year. We expect maybe 25 to 30 next year. We will have all the same teachers. We'll make some good progress there. Then we decide if we move to the 9th and 10th grade where we bring in another 100 plus students. After that, our school has the IB diploma program, which is fairly prescriptive in the amount of things that students need to learn, and it will be a different kind of sell.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I think quite a few high school teachers are on their own going to consider it and test it out, even if it's just in small areas. And then when these other group of kids come, I have a feeling, maybe not all of them, maybe 10% initially, but are just going to start doing it on their own. Maybe they can't change the grading system yet, like in the middle school, but I think everything else will, for at least a few people, are going to just start doing it. Because they're liking what we're experimenting with already. And one person, we have a professional development system where teachers can apply for a little bit of extra money, but they also then commit to doing some professional development that helps them in the school. And we have teachers who have, like one teacher anyway, who's decided that he's going to do this in the middle school.
I would say it's that our teachers are really good, and they know stuff that they want to do and change, right? And then when we give them a little bit of a framework that comes from outside education, it shows another way to do that actual change. And then at the same time, the changes that we want to do, the changes that we talk about it with this Agile mindset, also introduces them to further ideas about how they might want to change. So we get a nice positive feedback loop in a direction of innovation and creativity and good stuff for students. That's what makes me most excited.
But I think it also helps a lot that we started with the idea that they need that at least as a middle school, self-regulated learning, collaboration, and these educational concepts that we've been working with, and the growth mindset in particular, also are important to teachers too. And with the idea that they're not getting graded, particularly, or they have a threshold they have to meet, this not yet, and the fact that kids are working at different paces, it almost makes the Agile mindset easier. And if we start with an educational value, that makes it hard not to be Agile. The teachers can easily buy into educational concepts, and if Agile makes that easier, and Paul was wise enough to work with the grading system to make it support that, then it's almost like instead of having to sell Agile, we're selling an educational concept that's easiest to do with Agile.
Right. That's that feedback loop that's serving us really well. Yeah. And it's just really fun to work with the kids. We don't have I don't want to say we don't have any discipline issues, but I would be hard pressed right now to think about any serious discipline